Hey, how are you? I'm Ruben Zafra, the Z in A to Z. I'm in charge of mixing and mastering of everything. In this video, I wanted to show you a mix walkthrough of the Duality cover we did with all live instruments, because a lot of people asked me, especially about the drums, how I did them. So here it is. This is all the drums Toby gave me. I'm gonna let you preview this song a bit. Such a banger. So yeah, let's start with the drums. For the kick, Toby gave me 3 tracks. One that he recorded with the pod mic and outside condenser. I don't know which mic it was, but in the end I used more the samples. I didn't like it that much. This is just the kick in and out. I didn't process them separately, so I will show you how they sound, but in the end I just used the blend of the 3 and then processed them all together. They had a bit of bleed, but in the end this is what it sounded raw. I think this was the cream drums from Bogren Digital, and this is the processing I did to it. So this is how I process the kick. I processed them all together, as I said, and I basically did some light EQ, removing some boxiness, adding a bit of top end, although it already had, but I think this was a later move in the mix. Let me just... I'm removing this. A bit of 1K. This is more noticeable when you compress it. Adding a bit of more click. And removing a little bit of that last bright click. Because I thought the sample already had a bit of too much, and also it helps with the bleed as well. Then moving on, I did this Neve style EQ. Basically adding a bit 3 dB of 60, a little bit as well 3 dB of 3.2K, and a little bit of, this is 10K I think. I love how the boost help cut through the mix and everything. Then I used the distressor. I love this plugin from Keith. Shout out to them, they are awesome. And basically the tag all the way up and the release all the way down, aiming for I think 2 or 3 lights. Also high passing it for the detector, so it doesn't compress, the low end doesn't affect that much, and then a little bit of the saturation, 6:1 ratio. It sounds very good already without it, but I thought this also was later in the mix that I thought it needed a bit more. And then last, I had the Benson plugin, the Germanium Boost. I love this on every drum, or literally everywhere. I use it a lot of times everywhere, even in the master boss, but I don't think I did this one, but I do it a lot. This is just saturation kind of thing, and it removes a little bit of the transient as well. It doesn't make it that pokey. So yeah, moving on to the snare drum. On the snare drum I had 4 snares. These were the real ones with a 57 and a P4. The bottom snare is very good. As this was going to be a Slimnut cover, Toby gave me this Joey snare from GGT, I think it is. So I tried to use this one more. As also, like with the kick drums, I didn't do any processing on them. This would be fine. These two would be pretty fine to work with. But as I had these other 2 samples, I literally just blended all together and then processed them all together as well. This is the Joey snare. All alone, it sounds good, but when you blended it with the real thing, it complements it very well. It's never one or the other. I always like to use real snares and combine with the samples. One doesn't sound good without the other. The real snare gives it a lot of body, a lot of low end that the other lacks a bit. It's pretty good as it is, but I like it more thoughty, more meaty. And then the other sample, it's not very dialed in. This was also from the Cream drums, I think, from James Bogren. So altogether they sound like this. Sound very good as they are, but then I did a little bit of processing to them. Pretty much close in terms of plugins to the kick drum. A little bit of EQ to boost the low end and removing a bit of the boxiness in the snare, mainly from the live snare. But as they are all blended together, I had to do it in all of them at the same time and added a little bit of top end as well. It starts focusing a lot more and adding a lot of body to it. Then again, this new style EQ. I just got the British Class A from Soft2 to use with my Colson one. I used this one a lot, but now I'm starting to use the other one a lot. Again, I did a little bit of 220, 3 dB, a little bit of high end as well in the snare, and then a little bit of 10K as well. And cutting a bit in the 50. Again, the stressor, I think basically same settings without the distortion thing, saturation circuit. I like to use all the ratios and similar settings on all my drums to make them cohesive. On toms, it varies a bit. I use the release a bit more, but yeah, basically the same. I wasn't that hard with this one. The GGD and the Bogren were already a bit compressed on the way in, so I didn't think this needed that much of reduction, also, although it hits around here sometimes. And then mixed wave again. This one is better gain matched, and yeah, I love this plugin. You will see me use it a lot of times. It gives it a really nice saturation and makes it cut through the mix a lot. Also adding a lot of harmonics, it's really good. Moving on to toms, Toby was very surprised that I didn't use any samples on his toms. They were very good, actually. Let me find a part like this one. That is. Yeah. These are their raw takes. These are basically SM58s. I never used those on toms, but it worked for this thing. He said he only had 3 of one mic, so he decided to make them go cohesive as well, using the same mic on all 3. I did a very similar processing on all of them, so I think I will just go with one. Yeah, basically it's the same EQ and then compression. I thought I used the Benson, but it looks like I didn't. So yeah, basically boosting a bit of the fundamental, cutting just after that. And a trick that I use all the time, more or less, is that when you cut in the tom around here, you multiply these by 5 more or less. The frequency, this one is 253, so you multiply it by 5, and more or less around that area you should also cut. It works a lot of times, and for me it's the best way for EQ and toms. And then adding a bit of top end because they were a bit dull, and removing a little bit of the highs to help with the bleed, although there wasn't very much, surprisingly. Then again, give, as you can see, this has a little bit of release, but yeah, basically same settings as well. Aiming for 2 or 3 lights. I did the same thing on all 3. And then in the tom bass, I just did some more EQ to make it fit for the song, because I tend to do them on solo and then put it in the song and then tailor the sound to fit the song. They didn't cut that much before, and now with these cuts and a bit more high end, they are perfect. So yeah, these are the toms. Moving on to the overheads. They were very good overheads. What I did to them, again, Claro, one of my favorite EQs lately, to be surgical and cutting stuff. Yeah, removing a lot of boxiness and adding a bit of a high end, although it already had pretty good high end. Then again, the mix wave Germanium boost, similar settings, but I turned down more the input gain to don't make it too harsh, because distortion maybe sometimes makes it a bit harsh. And also, I don't know, it is all the way up. I thought I did a mix of it, but I don't know. And then one of my favorite plugins as well, to remove all this nastiness. Then Toby gave me a little bit of overhead samples I love to use, because the snare samples, because I think in the overheads it's where you find the snare to be sounding like a snare if you're in front of it, not like the close mic. So I like to blend it a lot in my mixes. This is the one from GGD, I think, and this one is the one from Poker. It contributes a lot to the sound. Moving on to the rooms. Rooms are very good. I love them. For this one, I used Control Hub. I love the Will Putney presses for the rooms, and this one is room balanced. I like room punch a lot as well. Room punch is awesome, and room aggressive sometimes as well. This is the raw sound. they are sounding very good. Then I use Control Hub. Basically adding some coloration with saturation. I think I cranked this a bit. Also some compression and some EQ to remove a bit of mod in the low, in the mids, and then subs as well. But adding a little bit of 80 hertz to help with the kick drum and removing some harshness. I usually go beyond this and carve a lot of the high end, because when I compress the room sounds, it sometimes gets a little bit harsh, and I just want it for the girth. I tend to remove a lot of the high end. Then again, mix with Germain. See, with this one, I'm using the output filters to remove some of the high end, because it gets too much. It's not super noticeable when it's soloed, but in the context of mix, it's too much. And then soothe again. To clean it out a bit more. I also had some room samples as well. I think the same, Bokren and GGD. Then moving on to the keg snare. This is the one that Kiko and Toby did, I think. They fit perfectly with the song. They are very well recorded. I literally did nothing to them. Nothing. Very well recorded. We will leave the link in the description if you want it. Then moving on to the bass, I also had a lot of questions to this. In this case, Toby gave me two reamps, but I also used 2 more reamps that I did with the plugins. These are the sounds that Toby did. This is just auto align to make them all fit together. Very aggressive bass sound, I love it. This was recorded by Max with a Dingwall, if I remember correctly, and it sounds amazing. I love how this bass sounds, it's insane. This is just the DI. It's amazing. Even with this amp that I had forever, I made it work with the new MacBook. I loaded it out by mistake because I wanted the BOD, the Sans amp thing. But when I typed TSE, I clicked on this one by mistake. But it sounded so good, I just left it. I just lowered the gain on this one to almost 1, and you can tell this is awesome. Then I used the BOD as well, the Sandsam thing. It sounds amazing. I love this bass. Please send me a lot of basses like this. And then all together they sound like this. These ones were awesome, but I needed a bit of more of a clean bass sound, so that's why I added the BOD. Although it is a bit distorted, but it serves for the purpose of being a bit of a cleanish bass. Then on the bass, I always use this one on my bass, the CLA bass. But this gives a lot of a great EQ sound, and then adding all of this makes it perfect. I usually use the distortion as well, but this bass already had a lot of distortion, so I didn't need it that much. Then with Claro, I did a little bit more of surgical EQ, if you will, adding a little bit more of the low end of the bass, around 100 Hertz, removing a lot of boxiness from it because it had a lot of 500 to 700 Hertz, and it's awesome for a lot of things, but in this case, I think this was more of a later mix move. I had to remove it a bit to fit with all the instruments. Without it, it's a bit pokey. You can hear it way too much, I think, and then I just did some light EQ to remove it a bit. This one always hurts my ears, the 1K area in the bass. I usually use Soothe as well, but I didn't need it this time. Then lastly, moving to guitars. I didn't do very much to it, as you can see. These are all the guitars that Toby sent. This was recorded by Jake and by him. And these are the tones that he gave me, raw. They sound very good. Then I did some processing to them. I used this SL style EQ 4KE from Baneworks, adding a lot of high end because they were good. They were very mid-rangey, which I love. But to make them fit the song and cut through, I had to add a lot of high end. I removed everything with the V-gain because it adds some haze to the sound that I hate. And then I removed high-end. I made a high cut around 8K. Yeah, exactly 8K. Adding a bit of 4K. A lot of people hate 4K, but well, it's not exactly 4K. It's a bit more on the 5K area. But I thought I needed some of that. Some more aggression. Then removing again some of the boxiness in the mid-range, but very little, just 1.5 dB. And then adding some low end to the sound as well. Helps the sound a lot to cut through and clean out a bit the guitar. Then again, one of my favorite plugins I use all the time, Soothe. People love to remove the 4K area, but I think the 3.5, 3.3 area and 2.5-ish are more dangerous to me. I don't like to remove that 4K thing and remove more around that. You can see that Soothe also is pointing at here at 3.5-ish. Both things, 3.5, 4K, depends on the source tone. Then adding some multipine compression for just the power. Yeah, and then lastly, some more EQ. This was just later stages on the mix for sure that make them cut through a bit more. They are great as they are, but I thought they needed a little bit more high end. And then lastly, the piano. I didn't do anything to it, so So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you want me to do more of this, just let us know in the comments below and I will do all the songs you want. Peace.